right. Hello, everyone. My name is Mike, and I am running. This is the beginning of my first game session for the Gauntlets gaming community. I'm very excited about it, and hopefully our three players are too. We have ourselves Brian, James, and Matthew. Matthew, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Just Matt is fine.
Matt, fantastic. All right, well, welcome to the game. This is No Country for Old Kobolds, and I guess before I get into the game, I guess we should go through the, go over the standard rules and setup for what involves, what goes into a Gauntlet gaming community game. And that is not product placement. It's just what I grabbed out of the fridge. So there's no big A&W advertising campaign that Gauntlet hasn't announced yet. So we are operating, first of all, under the principles of open table, meaning that anyone can come in and out at any time. It's no biggie. You know, we try to keep things flexible with everyone's schedules. We're also, let's see, what else do we also need to go over? I guess we should go over our safety tools, and those are some techniques that we employ during our role-playing game session to make sure that everyone, that we have a comfortable and welcoming game environment for everyone. You know, we don't know each other outside of this event, so we don't know what our particular peccadillos or sensitivities may be. So if we happen to accidentally brush up against one of them, we are equipped to deal with that in a way that everyone feels comfortable to continue playing. The most important of those tools is the X card. And that's if any subject comes up during the game that is uncomfortable for whatever reason, you don't need to say. You simply need to indicate, traditionally by signifying a visual X, something like even just making a arm signal like that, and we will back up and maneuver around that sensitive material. And if there is any, I guess we can also talk about right now. Yes, I see a comment from James that there is the Roll for Your Party website, which includes dice rollers. It also includes the X card mechanic, so you can indicate that with just a click of a button. I don't have a Roll for Your Party game set up. Traditionally, I've always preferred just rolling dice the old-fashioned way, but we can just go ahead and set up a Roll for Your Party window. If nothing else, we'll have that text box.
I've been using it in all my other games, and it works really well.
Yeah, so I think I've got one here. Steady. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and send the link out for that. And let's get the comment window open. Oh, it looks like some. Okay, looks like a couple of us are ready. Yeah, let's go for the first one. That's the Barely Amazing Moose. Thank you, Matt. And there we are. While we're talking about dice, I should note that No Country for Old Kobolds, it's based on Dungeon World, so the basic mechanic is rolling 2d6. And it also employs I think a d4, d8, d10, and d12. No d20s in this game, so whenever you take the time to call up your dice set, those are the ones you'd want to punch in. And yeah, I see the X card. Yeah, I see the X card functionality right there too. Fantastic. All right, so where were we? Oh yes, I just gone through the Gauntlet introduction, and now I guess we may as well go ahead. Let's go ahead and introduce. May as well go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Mike. I've been in the Gauntlet gaming community for about I think about 3 years now, and this is the first event I am running for with a group. And I'll go ahead and also say that the reason I've been wanting to run this game for a while, and I like kobolds because I think they're fascinating because, they're the most humble of the typical fantasy gaming species, civilizations, and yet they have a connection to the most majestic and wonderful of all creatures, the dragons. And I've always found that was an interesting connection, that the lowly kobold can be connected to the mighty and mythical dragon. Perhaps if we can go from left to right, starting with Brian, then James, and then Matt. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves, and if you don't mind, tell us why you think kobolds are are cool. Maybe start with you, Brian.
Yeah, I'm Brian. Why are kobolds cool? I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it that much. I know that the first Dungeons and Dragons like dungeon that I made in Drew Map had a colony of kobolds in it, and that was like that was there was some evil wizard further down that was like the big boss. But I remember kind of trying to make it somewhat realistic that there was this whole society of kobolds in there. So yeah, I guess it's goes back to that for me.
That is the common experience that the kobolds are the first adversary in your typical starting Dungeons and Dragons game.
Mm-hmm.
Starting all the way back to Keep on the Borderland, right?
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that one back in the day, but
right.
I know it now. But yeah.
Great. Well, welcome aboard, Brian. And James, why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Hey, my name's James. I go by Crom all around. My pronouns are they, them, or he, him. Both of them work. I like kobolds for way too many reasons. They kind of activate like my parental. I don't know what to call it, like my parental instinct, even though I'm not an actual parent, other than my dog right here. I have my dog on my lap. But other than that, kobolds are just they're really something special. They're the underdogs. Like they're literally the weakest enemies you can ever face in anything, even compared to like goblins and other things like that. And it's just there's something special when you start to think about, okay, so like what if we extrapolate, like, what are their personalities and behavior like when you expand out, like what do they actually do? And it's like they're crafty little bastards, And I just really adore just how scrappy they are. It's something special to me. And like you, I also have a huge love for how much they're associated with dragons. I really fell in love with them in Pathfinder when I was playing Pathfinder a lot, and just kind of all downhill from there.
Yeah, and in fact, James, I have you to thank for posting this event. I've been interested in running this game for a while, but when you came aboard the Gauntlet community, which I believe was fairly recently, am I remembering that correctly?
About a month and a half ago.
Yeah, welcome aboard. You came aboard and you showed a whole lot of enthusiasm for kobolds right away, and that's really what sparked me to say, okay, this is the time. I've been wanting to run a game session. I wanted to start like contributing to the community by running games, and I had this book sitting around for a while. And when you came aboard, that was the final straw, the final push that said, okay, this is the time. So thank you for the inspiration, and thank you for introducing yourself. And let's hear from Matt now, if we could, please.
Hi, my name's Matt. I'm also very recent to the Gauntlet community. I think I'm a long-time listener of the podcast, like some realities and that stuff. So, and then I figured it was time to join the community, get some games in me. And I'm fairly new to role-playing games in general. I remember seeing this No Country for Old Kobold on Drive-Thru RPG and reading it and being really interested in seeing it played, but now as soon as I saw your game there, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll try that. Since I had I think I had like 2 D&D games in my lifetime, so both of them were with goblins and undead, so like I have no experience seeing kobolds played, but I'm all in.
Awesome. Welcome to the group also, and thanks for joining this session. So yeah, I was pretty impressed when I first read through this game. I think what really caught my imagination were the multi-tiered layers of the game. It operates on an individual kobold level. It operates on a lineage level, the whole family of kobolds. I thought it was interesting that the game accommodates for the squishiness of kobolds by just letting you play kobold after kobold, all related to each other in an unending chain. Like basically your family seems like it's the real character, and at the village level, and then finally at the world creation level, where everyone gets to create the brutal, vicious, and cold-hearted countries that surround your humble village and oppress it and squeeze it at every turn. So as you may have gathered from my introductory email yesterday, there's a bit of ramp up to start one of these games. There's a good amount of world building going, but as I just alluded to, that at least for me, that seems like it's a lot of the fun. So why don't we go ahead and dive into that? Are we all able to access the player folder, including the character keeper? Is that something that everyone has on hand, or shall I repost the link?
No, we're good.
All right. And it looks like, let me just get that file open myself. And we'll start walking through all this. I can say that we'll start by creating the countries. That is the bad guys, the antagonists, as it were. Each one of you, and right now there's 3. Another player, Robbie, will be joining us next week. So there will be a 4th country coming in to haunt our intrepid kobolds. But for now, we can start with 3. So if you can click onto the 3rd tab, which is the enemy countries tab, you'll see running across listings for up to 4 of the countries that we'll be establishing. If you could all pick a color, so yeah, maybe just enter your name under enemy country for now, just so we know who's working in which row. I see Crown has selected the purple row. Excellent. And looks like Matt is taking the, I guess that's teal. And finally, taking the yellow row will be Brian. All right, so yes, so first we start by, I guess first we should start by discussing what the general gaming environment will be. In the book, the homestead of the kobolds is referred to as a village, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a specific village with huts in the middle of a field somewhere. It could be any environment we could imagine. They could be living in a mountain cave. They could even be living, they could be in a swamp. They could even be in a giant fantasy city like a Waterdeep, lurking in the sewers, or perhaps some inconspicuous alleyway. So first of all, I guess, how do we feel about what kind of environment we want to set our kobolds in?
How does everybody feel about maybe our village settled in a ruin of an ancient city? Maybe like.
Is this so this is, you said ruins, so this will be like an abandoned city?
Yeah, something like really ancient, but we saw that the foundation was maybe still good and kind of like built it from there, right? So it's like a lot of like ancient stonework, but then it's like on top of that, it's like huts and stuff like that, and like wooden scaffolding that make up most of our infrastructure.
Huh.
Kind of like I don't know much from kobolds or how they build or anything like that, but that's my take.
Well, I think traditionally it makes sense that they're the type of society that would take advantage of those kinds of existing ruins as opposed to build something massive on their own. That sounds like a pretty cool setup for me. Do Brian and James, do you have other ideas you want to contribute next to or on top of that one?
I have a twist on it, if we'd like. So usually kobolds settle somewhere that is eminently useful to them in the long term. Like the classic example is mines. But so in this case, like my thought is, what if these ruins are like a dwarven ruins? Imagine this being like leftover dwarf fortress type of situation, where we've like taken over some a dwarven outpost that had been exploring tunnels underneath, and there's nothing that we know has value yet, but we know that the history of the place. So we're like, why were they digging? I want like that as kind of the answer of the thing.
Yeah. So you're saying like we would have like not fully explored mine shafts underneath the city kind of thing?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, and you've added a very nice overarching mystery to connect our sessions here. I think that's a cool setup too.
Maybe
Brian, do you have any?
A region that the city would be in, some kind of like geographic location to tie the city to?
Yes, like what's on the surface, you mean?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Do you have thoughts? Is this a mountainous region or something else perhaps?
Hoping maybe Brian can pitch in for this one.
I mean, all that sounds good to me. We're just looking for the.
Yeah, like what kind of biome are we mainly in right now?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more mountainous and colder than maybe we'd like, but some of these other things that made it attractive have kind of overrode those preferences.
So maybe it's a little secluded.
Yeah.
If it's
I like
in
the idea of maybe
cold.
the mine shaft providing like heat during the colder months or something like that. Like maybe they're so deep
Oh.
underground that like we retreat to the caves during the winter.
Maybe the volcanic, actively volcanic.
Yeah.
Active volcano. Okay. So I think that's a pretty good vision for where we're basically going to be.
I see a lot of potential for things to go wrong already.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, sure. There's any number of external pressures we could apply to this scenario. So we're talking like a northern mountainous region that's also active volcanoes, something like. Aren't there active volcanoes in like Finland or Iceland or something like that? I'm not sure if I'm getting that correctly, but that kind of idea perhaps is seems to be was what we're describing. And there are dwarf ruins that the kobolds have resettled in. Have they migrated from somewhere warmer, perhaps? Or I don't know if that was in your thinking, or is it just they're just around and they happened to discover these dwarf ruins and decided to make this their settled home?
Maybe we lost our history.
Okay, that's fair enough.
We're just fleeing from our past lives.
Yeah, we
basically surviving.
The plan might have been to like pass over this mountain range and down into somewhere else, but instead we found this along the way, and we don't necessarily remember where we were coming from or where the final plan to go to was. But this is
a wandering people. Yeah, you've been wandering for many generations, and so long that you've even forgotten. The reasons for the wandering are perhaps buried in myths. So, yeah, I think that's a very good starting point. Now, each one of you will want to contribute an enemy country. So we might want to start brainstorming what kinds of enemy civilizations would be dominant in this kind of region, and preying upon on our poor kobolds. We've talked about mountains, volcanic mountains. We've talked about dwarves having lived here at some point. I don't know if you want to think about maybe what may be traditional enemies of the dwarves who may still be in the area, if whatever might interest you. Like basically think about like what kinds of adventures and what kinds of escapades and hijinks you want to get up to, and who you think might be fun antagonists, and you could derive country ideas from that.
Maybe like a dwarf hold nearby that like wants to. Perhaps doesn't know about the ruins, but would like to reclaim it if they knew that those things were still around.
Sure, it would make sense that there'd still be dwarves around here in the general area. Do you want to make that your country?
Yeah, sure.
Matt. Okay. So you could enter in, I guess, under inhabit. Okay, yeah, maybe actually we should walk through before we go too much further. We should probably walk through what all these categories are. So enemy country is basically just the name of the civilization. Inhabitants, that's pretty self-explanatory. It doesn't have to be all one singular race. If it's a number of them or a whole bunch of them, you could specify that too. Society is basically what kind of government they're run by, and anything else related to that you might want to think about. Like, is it a martial society? Is it run as a theocracy? Are they run by mages or whatever else? Now, the greatest champion is basically each country will have their kind of like their exemplar figure, like the one being that represents the totality of why this country is so nasty to kobolds. Basically, it'll be like the prime antagonist from each of these countries. And at this stage, you could just come up with concepts here. Like for example, in the book, some of the examples they give for a typical medieval style just animation. Let me look this up just so I can give you some, just so you can have some working background for what's expected in this kind of game, as stated in the rules at least. I like this rule book. It's maybe not the best organized rule book, but that's a common feature of role-playing games, I feel. Oh, okay, so here we go. So oh wait, that's not the champions. I'll find it. There you are. Okay, so there are 3 sample countries. There's Uplandia, which is like your basic medieval style civilization. The greatest champion is Dolph the Great, who is this big knight. For a Novan society called the Garden, their greatest champion is the Queen of Leaves, who's kind of like this super powerful elf with all kinds of nature powers. And and this is maybe perhaps the most gonzo feature of No Country for Old Kobolds. As you can imagine from having a pun of the title, it's kind of a whimsical game, but this may be the point where the rules maybe get a little too silly for my tastes. But they include a society of luchador dwarves, basically dwarf masked wrestlers, who live in a society called the Great Ring. And the greatest champion, of course, is the Silver Mask, who I guess is the El Santo of dwarves. So that's the kind of general thinking about what we're looking for a greatest champion. Next, you see a window called "What do they want from kobolds?" So the assumption is that every country, each of these enemy countries, they have some reason for interacting with kobolds, but they might want to. But each of them ideally should want to interact with kobolds or pick on kobolds for a different reason. For example, maybe they like skinning kobolds. Maybe like making boots out of kobolds. Horrifying as that sounds. Maybe they use them as maybe they try to press them into slavery for enslaved labor. Maybe they just like to sacrifice them to their gods. Who knows? Just whatever you could think of. And as you see, each of those windows has an external pressure clock. We'll get into that later. What can they do for kobolds? That's where we try to come up with like a couple of specific things that they do to really kind of mess with kobold society. For example, let me just go back to the page for a few more examples. So I just had it too. This is basically whenever let's see. Where did I find that?
How would you all feel if I added that this is facing the waterfront? So this dwarven outpost is like sort of on a rocky outcropping that is accessible to the sea.
Sounds fine by me. What do the rest of y'all think?
I like it.
Because if I can do that, I can introduce the concept of pirates who want the kobolds to be a part of their crew, basically.
Ah, like gang pressing them or whatever they used to call
Yeah.
it.
I like that.
Interesting.
So pirates and dwarves. I'm feeling like going something weirder, like a Kingdom of Spiders or something.
Ooh.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, maybe something like
Like it.
underground civilization.
Yeah.
Are we throwing in drows with that, or are we just keeping it the spiders?
I'm just thinking spiders, intelligent, big intelligent spiders.
Sure.
Telepathic too, right?
But of course. It does kind of open up, if they're telepathic, like it does open up the possibilities for what they want from kobolds. Maybe, I guess the obvious thing that comes to mind is that, like to web them up for food storage. But if they have a psychic component, that kind of opens up what they could be. They could be like leeching their minds or stealing their dreams or something like that, for all we know. So yeah, psychic spiders. And I apologize, this is the first time I've run this game, so I'm still trying to remember my way around all this stuff. I'm trying to look up for examples of consequences from what happens when the external pressures that these countries provide actually happen and kick in. Now here we are. I think the reason I had trouble finding it is because this section of the book is listed as inputs, which to me is not an intuitive way of describing the bad things that enemy country could do to you kobolds. So yeah, basically inputs are a way for external pressures to come to bear. Here are some examples. The book comes up with an example of goblin miners being antagonist. And here are the things that goblin miners can do against kobolds. They may discover gold between your village and begin to undermine it with dynamite. That's not good. The miners may be dynamiting the hills near your water source, and the water is tainted, poisoning some of your people. Also not good. A neighboring country has hired the goblins to mine on your borders. What are you looking for? Why must you have it? And the miners have destroyed a great deal of your territory with strip mines, causing famine that saps your resources. So basically just the things they can do to harm your resources. And again, resources is something we'll get into later when we detail the village. But for now, if you might just want to think about, just even if just generally you just fill out what they want from kobolds, we could always come up with what the consequences as they spring up, or even in between this session and the next one. I think the most important thing would be to get from enemy country to what do they want. So if we can fill that out, I think that might be the best thing to do for now, and keep the game going apace. In the meantime, I'm going to reformat these windows so that they can more properly. There we go. I'm just realigning the text to make them a little more visible, like so. I just created this, finished this up last night. So we're not only playtesting my GM abilities, we're playtesting the character keeper. So far I'm seeing the Woven Caverns. I'm assuming those are the psychic spiders. We have Karakzan and the Northern Holds, our Stark Dwarven populace mostly. And then the Pirate Cooperative. I like that they're cooperative.
Yeah, I'm kind of having the idea that they're like these bad guys who think they're good guys who are really bad guys.
Yeah, I read up on pirates ahead of a Dungeon World campaign that was pirate based, and it was interesting how, yeah, they were terrible people. They marauded, they pillaged, they stole, and wreaked havoc everywhere they went. But they, the book that I was reading raised the point that they grew up in a society or a time where if you weren't born rich, you were never going to get rich. You're always either going to be born rich or super poor for the rest of your whole lives. And piracy was like one of the ways people could actually have a ladder to climb up. And that added some interesting perspective on the pirate nature. So yeah, I'm sure certainly from the pirates' perspective, they're doing exactly what they need to do in order to have any hope of a bearable life. Even if that means pressing poor kobolds into the mix.
Join us or die.
Yeah.
Also worth noting, I decided to call them a monstrous, comprised of monstrous races. So they're kind of already outcasts in general from the rest of the people, which is why I figure they attacked the dwarves.
Oh, I see. So you mean the dwarves that used to live in the ruins?
Yep.
Interesting.
That's kind of the thought I had. We can change it if we don't want that to be the thing, but that was kind of my idea.
Okay. I see you've got James, you've got all of your things set up. That's excellent. Let's see. Our Dwarven Society, it's a monarchy led by Theodoric, the Stone King, for the last 500 years. Very long-lived dwarf indeed. He holds the Great Book of Grudges, which is exceedingly dwarven thing to do. Of course, they'd have a great book for their grudges. That's excellent. And Craven Dragonslayer is a great champion, the killer of Balgaroth and holder of the axe of Gragoth. It's a lot of Oths. It's
Sorry, I'm not very imaginative.
No, that's fine. No, I didn't mean that to make fun. I was going to lead. Actually, you know, I was going to lead that into a bad pun about how awful he was, but I chose not to do it, and now I just chose to do it anyway. So anyway, that's the only reason I giggle. So I would imagine that what they would want would be I guess the runes back. I would imagine.
Yeah, maybe it was like way bigger back in the day, and they suffered some kind of like calamities that like most of their holds were like destroyed and abandoned or something like that. So maybe now they just want to reclaim most of it, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah.
So maybe they don't even know that this particular rune is inhabited by kobolds because they're so much more shorter lived, right? So for them, it's like, oh, there's pest in this one. Since when has there been pest in this one?
Right. Yeah, there could be all kinds of runes that you haven't even touched upon yet, and who knows what lives in those, right? Excellent, very nice. The Woven Caterans, who are inhabited by the Arachna, are giant psychic spiders, and they are theocracy. Oh, delightful.
Religious psychic spiders.
Mm-hmm. I shudder to think what their greatest champion is. Yeah, basically, while we're wrapping up our enemy countries, the external pressure clock, basically, at certain moments, like as a move, I as the game master can tick down the external pressure clock, and there's 3 different stages. Once it gets to the 3rd stage, the country strikes, as you may see in the menu that I've pulled down, and then one of the what can they do to kobolds things actually happens. It's basically like an extra. Just a little fun extra something to keep the pressure on you kobolds while you're off doing your kobold missions. To note that also just to demonstrate how we do live. This game is set in a world where kobolds are oppressed and bedraggled and preyed upon, and this is how it happens. Now, below the 4 rows of enemy countries, you'll see another row of external pressures, and that just indicates that that these countries aren't the only external pressures. Like as the events come up in the game, depending on what may happen, maybe other things come to pass that may add additional stressors on society. Like I know one thing that comes to mind. There is a kobold village ability where you can become kobold riders for the champion. Basically, you champions. That's what they call player characters in this game, kobold champions. You could be basically tame a mounted animal, and you can like ride around on horses or giant frogs or what have you. And if you take that village ability advantage, then you have to add another external pressure to as represented by the creatures that prey on your mounted animals. So that's just one example of how extra pressures can come into the world and give you something else to deal with. Brian, do you have any thoughts on what the giant psychic spider theocracy would want from kobolds?
Yes. Yeah. I'm thinking one, they probably don't mind feeding on kobolds. They definitely see them as food. But I also think the tunnels underneath the kobold village are well suited for incubating their egg sacs. So they want their territory.
Hmm. So much like the dwarves, they want to claim the ruins, but for
It
something
really
else.
feels like the land that we're basing the story around is very inhospitable. Like there's not a lot of good spots for civilizations to bloom, right? So it's like everybody's fighting for scraps.
Sure, these could be just jagged, treacherous mountains, and yeah, not a lot of maybe not even a lot of caves. Maybe even fewer caves than usual. You expect in sky mass. Not much livable space. Not much livable space. Brian, did you mention that the spiders also feed on the kobolds?
I'm sorry, did I mention what?
That the spiders feed on the kobolds. Is that something you had mentioned also?
You were cutting in and out there. I did not catch that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Let me see.
I think it's your internet.
Did you? Oh, is it my internet? Do I have a bad connection?
Seems better now.
Are you okay right now?
Okay. Okay. Well, hopefully that'll persist. Brian, I did you mention something about the spiders also feeding on the kobolds? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Perhaps are they specifically using kobolds as feeding stock for their eggs? Perhaps even.
Sure, that too.
Mm-hmm. And yes.
I like the idea of like kobolds wandering down in like tunnels and then getting like mind taken over by like these spiders to lure more kobolds into the thing. So
Oh, boy.
Come see down here. I have found something.
Well, that does lead into my next question: is though, what exactly are the psychic abilities?
Yeah, definitely some mind control. I'm thinking of exactly how I'm phrasing it, but yeah, I picture them hypnotizing and yeah, psychically controlling kobolds for sure.
Yeah, we get into the specifics, as we play to find out what happens. But yeah, that's something else that just occurs to me. We mentioned before the fact that the volcanic heat might be one of the reasons that one of the things that drew the kobolds to these ruins. Could that also be why the spiders want to lay their eggs in this particular place? Like the heat is also useful for them in their egg hatching.
Yeah, maybe it's not really where they live, but it's like where they like to incubate their eggs, right?
Oh yeah, like animals that like salmon that swim upriver to the spawning grounds, and then once they've done that, they swim off and live the rest of their lives. Circle of life. Yeah. It looks like we've got a pretty good layout of things here. Yes, we have. Yes, the woven caverns, the giant psychic spiders that want to incubate their eggs in kobold territory. We have the dwarves who want to reclaim the ruins that their forebears had built, and the pirate collective looking for fresh meat to staff their mighty pirate ships. And it's worth noting, we should note, not only do we have Makarasa being the champion of the spiders, but also Kurz the Orcic wench, who was pressed into service when she was a barmaid, took over quickly, earning the name the Orcish wench for the service she does for her people. I like that. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got ourselves enemy nations. That's very good. Next, we're going to want to detail our village, and for that, we'll go to the first tab, and we can go over all that. The next very important question that I have to pose to you is, what is the name of your village?
Maybe we name it something after the dwarves running away.
like a kind of a defiance spiting of the dwarves.
Yeah.
Yeah, what could indicate that kind of commemoration?
Dwarfs Craven.
Dwarves Craven. That's not bad. That's okay, that's Dwarves Craven. Do we have any other ideas for? We can just, I guess, brainstorm a couple and then figure out which one we like the most. And I guess maybe perhaps another thing to think about is, it something, are we using like English terminology for the name, or do we want to come up with something like that actually sounds of the kobold language? And also, what does our kobold language sound like? I guess it's a whole other question. Like now the Dwarves Craven also, as I read it, presumes that at some point they found out some amount of the history of what happened to. First of all, that this place was built by dwarves and that they were driven out by some reason. So
I could see us like naming it in some way, like we're even though it was like ancient and abandoned like long ago, we're like naming it to show like, yeah, we took it over from the dwarves.
I see, some propaganda. Yeah, like naming it as if you're the ones that drove them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like, I don't know, beard burner or something, beard burner or something like that. So yeah, name that tells a story of.
That sounds. Oh wow.
What's that?
Beard burn. That's a pretty good way to spite dwarves.
Yeah, you gotta hit them where it hurts, right? I definitely like the idea that they're basically, as a rootless people, there would be a good amount of emotional attachment to the idea of building your own history, even if you have to make it up yourself. How do we feel about Dwarves Craven, Beardburn? Any other ideas? What should we run with?
I'm leaning towards Beardsburn. That's pretty cool.
Beardsburn. Okay, so we can throw an S in there. And barring anything else, I'll just go ahead and insert that in there. We can, of course, change that if we come up with any other brilliant ideas as we start up this game. You'll see next to the village name, there's XP. There are experience points. Another thing that sets off No Country for Old Kobolds from other games is that you kobolds will never gain experience points. And basically, the only way you gain abilities is by dying in creating the next generation of your family. But we can go over that later. But basically, you do earn experience points in the typical way. Like by failing rolls, you get an experience point. Doing various other stuff. What you use for the experience points for is to buy additional moves for your village. And at the bottom, you'll see that there are 4 basic moves. I might just go over that now. There's Recruit. Basically, if you go out on a mission and you want to bring some kobolds with you, that's you employ the Recruit move to bring part of your population out. There's Breed. This is like the Old Kobolds version of the carouse maneuver in Dungeon World. In Dungeon World, you complete a mission, then you go to a tavern somewhere and party, and you get to do the carouse move. Here, you complete a mission, you come back to your village, you share the whatever resources you procured in that mission, and then it's breeding season. It's your main chance of increasing your population, which is basically the hit points for your village. Run away. Anytime the village gets attacked or someone comes to attack, you roll that move, and that determines whether the invaders are even able to find you in the first place. As you can imagine, a significant component of kobold survival is never being found to get picked on in the first place. And finally, the last basic move for a village is stockpiles. And that's when you return from a mission, you've got some kind of resource, but rather than share it, you just kind of like store it for a rainy day. and you can like gain stockpile hold, which you can use at a time of your own choosing for various bonuses. And under moves, you also see four entries labeled additional moves. And I've actually programmed all the additional moves that are available. There are typically two tiers of additional moves. The basic tier costs 7 experience points, and then the super funky awesome moves cost 14 experience points. Also, if you go to your folder and call up the village sheet, there's a PDF file called Village Sheet that gives you a full description of the village moves that you can spend experience points to acquire. So there's that. I know I'm kind of jumping around the character sheet around, so please bear with me. Let's go ahead and talk about the stats on the leftmost column. The stats run from I think what does it run from? From -1 to 3, and maybe we can work on this now, because this will go a long way towards determining what kind of village we have. So basically, you'll have to designate. Basically assign one of the numbers to each of these attributes. Like one will have to be -1, one will be 0, one will be 1, 2, and 3, and so forth. So here's what the stats actually indicate. Warfare is how well you fight as a village. Hardiness is basically how healthy your village is, and it also determines your population. Ingenuity, how clever you are, how industrious you are in the face of danger. Teamwork is how well you work together towards common goals, and secrecy is how well you can hide. So maybe the next group decision would be, which of these do you think you want your village to be best at? Do you want to be butt kickers? Do you want to just be hardy, like really healthy and very reproductive, I guess you could say? Do you want to be smart? Do you want to be like a well-oiled operating machine, or do you just want to be the ultimate lurkers? What do you think is the most appealing for you as a civilization?
I'm personally leaning between ingenuity and secrecy. I don't know about you guys. I just feel because it's like a lot of ruins and it's like tunnels and stuff like that, I feel like there'd be a lot of spots for us to hide. So maybe the village is very secretive, well hidden. You have escape tunnels and stuff like that. Also because maybe like it's such a harsh land to live at, maybe we really need to be smart about how we use our resources. Maybe ingenuity. That's kind of like my thought process right now.
Also, like reasonable propositions. Brian and James, do you have any thoughts about what you'd like the village to excel most at?
I feel kind of similarly, but I feel like rather than ingenuity, they'd be more hardy, because I feel like our backgrounds for our people is they've been through a lot to the point where they don't really remember a lot about their past. So for them to have survived this long, they would have to be pretty secretive and hardy.
Yeah, I can see it. Just like maybe we went on like a mass exodus from our previous spot, right? So it's like only the strong survive to this new village.
Right.
So definitely the hardiest of us.
Yes, much like New Jersey, only the strong survive in Kobold land. So that's a case for hardiness. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, of those two, I think hardiness makes sense to me.
All right. So let's go ahead and we'll leave hardiness at 3. It's already at 3, so we'll just leave that as B. Next, I'd like to address what you think the weakest attribute would be. If your village is going to die, what do you think is the most likely reason for it dying? Is it going to be because you get your butts kicked in open warfare? It's because you're basically too stupid to live, or you're just like bickering all the time, or you're just too out in the open? Do you have any thoughts about that? For which attribute we could assign the -1 to?
-1 is as low as it can go, right?
That's correct. And I don't think these attributes really change a lot. At least I don't recall seeing any any function for any ability or benefit that or advantage or whatever that would change these stats. I think these are pretty much static.
This is the nature of this particular tribe of kobolds.
Right.
Yeah.
How do people feel about teamwork being our weakness? Lots of divisions and infighting.
Works for me.
It's either that or warfare. I don't really know.
I feel like picking warfare to be our worst attribute is a risky move.
Well, it depends on what kind of game you want to play. If you want to have a kind of game where you're just constantly outwitting people and sneaking around and pulling scams, warfare might be a good way to go. The best way to win a fight is to not have to fight it.
No, let's go with teamwork.
What of the advances is village improvements, where you can change a stat by plus
Oh,
one?
you know what? That's right.
Says you can only take it once.
Yeah, so I guess, yes, thank you for reminding me about that. It looks like that is the one, perhaps that is the only way you can increase a stat is by taking the village improvement. It's a 7 experience point cost move. And yeah, you can only take it once. And basically you just do that, talk about what you do to improve your whatever attribute you want to improve, and then you do it. So yeah, that's the one instance, I believe. And apart from just like, us making stuff, I'm saying, what, you've pulled off this massive mission and everyone's learned such a valuable lesson from it that we'll go ahead and increase that as well. But that's just strictly GM improv at that point. But yes, in the rules, that's the one way you can improve a stat. Otherwise, they pretty much stay put. Oh, population goes up and down all the time too. So that doesn't count in that regard. So so we've had
and warfare, I think.
That's right. Yeah, teamwork and warfare were discussing for the big weakness.
We need a tie-breaking vote.
Well, I guess whoever didn't suggest one of those can go ahead and make the call. Or you can just choose a different attribute and and stalemate us.
I lean more towards teamwork.
Teamwork. All right.
Yeah.
Teamwork it is.
Teamwork it is. And then now I've got the other ones. We just need to fill out secrecy, ingenuity, and warfare with 0, 1, and 2.
I vote secrecy gets 2.
2 for secrecy. Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Sounds good.
Now I've got warfare.
0 for warfare. 0 for warfare, so we can keep some ingenuity. What do you guys think?
Ingenuity would be at 1 in that case. So in this proposal, we have warfare at 0, hardiness at 3, ingenuity at 1, teamwork at -1, and secrecy at 2. How do we feel about that?
I'm torn between saying I want to flip ingenuity and secrecy, but I don't really know because
yeah. From what I understand of kobolds in general, they are crafty. They are a crafty race, right? So
by tradition, yep. Also, it might, again, I always, I always like to go back to the point of what do you think would be most fun to play? And so, do you think being sneaky would be more fun than being, I guess, ingenious and innovative? You can go either way.
Well, looking at what we're surrounded with, like dwarves, telepathic spiders, and a monstrous pirate fleet, I don't think we have any chance of winning warfare.
Yeah, it is pretty. Plus 1 enemy country to be named later.
Let's keep secrecy at 2.
Okay, so that's what we have now. Oh, and that now population goes up to 7. And just as a general guideline, a population point is give or take about 10 kobolds. So you've got about 70 kobolds to start out with. 75 once you throw you all in. So there's that. And now we have the wants. The wants are basically the resources that your village is always striving to keep up to date. I've got a few examples listed there. It could be basically anything you can think of needing for your peoples. Location is basically in general, it's like what enemy country do you have to go to get the resource? So that's another thing you should think about when you decide what you want to be. Complication would be, you know, just any what immediate obstacle there would be to acquiring said want. And just like the external pressures, there are want clocks. There's a clock associated to each want. It's a little more complicated. You click on it, you'll see that it goes from 1 o'clock to midnight. And basically, again, every time you roll a miss, I get to tick one of these off. And also you basically go on missions to reset the clocks back to 1 o'clock. That's basically why you go on missions. As easy as the first 3 ticks, 1, 3, and 6 o'clock, no population loss occurs. At 9 o'clock, the 4th tick, you lose 1 population point. At 11 o'clock, the 5th tick, you lose another population point. And once you get to midnight, you lose 1d6 population points. A very big drop. As a further complication, if you already have a clock at midnight and one of your other clocks goes to midnight, you lose 1d6, but then you also lose another one for that other clock that is already at midnight. So you definitely want to avoid the clocks ticking to the very end.
So do we each have to come up with a resource?
That's correct. Yeah, each of you comes up with one. And basically, you go on missions to reset these clocks. When you reset a want clock, usually ideally, I come up with some kind of custom move as an extra treat that you get to engage. But I probably come up with that between the session and the next session. Also, anytime you reset a want clock, one of the external pressure clocks in the enemy country field, that goes up 1. So basically, you do something good, and you basically get more attention, or one of the enemy
it's like
countries.
playing whack-a-mole with clocks.
Exactly. That's an excellent way of explaining it. That's exactly what's going on. It's like, yeah, it's like spinning plates, playing whack-a-mole. You settle one need and something else pops up. You bring some success to your people, and some country gets pissed off that you dared to not suck, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so maybe I guess everyone can just stick with the resource that, or the want that for associated with each of your countries. So Brian, if you could think of what the kobolds would want from giant psychic spiders, and Matt, if you could think of what you would want from what the kobolds would want that only the dwarves would be able to supply, or the dwarven kingdom would be the only place you'd be able to find that thing. And then James, if you can do the same for the pirate cooperative, what would the kobolds need that you would have to interact or wander amongst the pirates for some reason to acquire? That would be the next step in defining, or perhaps the last step even, in defining the village of Beardsburn. It's 6:17 now. I figure we'll just finish up, creating the village and then creating your initial characters, and then we take a little break, and then we'd spend the rest of the time going through one mission. This game is designed for very short missions. The rules suggest spending it kind of emphasizes quick frenetic action to simulate the quick and often very short lifespans of kobolds. It suggests we're keeping a mission to no more than 1 hour of game time. So for the rest of the sessions, we'll be able to do like 2 or 3 missions in a game setting. But for now, I think we'll just do one. But yeah, let's go ahead and figure out some wants. I see wood. What would the kobolds be doing with the wood?
Trying to figure that out, but it kind of makes the most sense because pirate ships means they have wood to keep their ships afloat.
It's true. There's certainly no forests nearby. Another thing about pirates is, since they wander over the world, there's pretty much no limit to what kind of resources you could come across by sneaking onto or raiding or stealing from pirate ships. Because they're basically bringing stuff from all over the world. I'm seeing weapons and metal. from as being wants associated with the Dwarven Hold. That makes sense. That's pretty self-explanatory. Oh well, actually, here's the thing. As we define these things, we might want to think about coming up with wants that are like really. Think about what would
things
literally
that the village needs to operate. Is that kind of what?
Yeah, I think it might be. I think maybe the best way to think about this would be, and this may require some tinkering with the wants that we established them so far, is what will kill kobolds if you run out of it. Like in the examples, food and water, that's pretty obvious how that would end up being fatal. Gold, I'm assuming that example is like gold to some mean dragon that would like stomp on people if it doesn't get its proper gold tribute. So maybe just think about a want that would, that where lives are literally on the line.
Thinking maybe we need the wood for propping up the tunnels down below, and
okay. Okay,
that's down under the tunnels all the time, and we risk collapsing the caves if we're not building it properly.
I got you. And because what else would you use for that, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Like you basically things to stuff to fortify the tunnels with, and anytime you don't, then stuff starts collapsing on top of people. I got you. As far as metals, I mean, for all we know, maybe kobolds, maybe they feed on metal for all we know, or whatever. So just
yeah, that'd be kind of cool, actually.
I always had as headcanon that the fact dragons want those huge piles of gold is that's literally what they feed on. But and that's why they have kobolds mining for them all the time.
My favorite theory is like, how in D&D how everything magic is in terms of like the gold cost of like, a diamond is 2,000 gold pieces. It's like, well, what if gold was literally like a source of magic? So the reason the dragon wants to hoard that much is it basically is raw power.
Yeah, there's a certain sense to that kind of imagining. Yeah.
Maybe our kobolds are like brass dragon blooded kobolds and they eat metals.
Could be. Now, something that occurs to me, if this is I'm presuming this ruined dwarven hold used to be a mine or used to be associated with a mine. When you want as metals, one thing's, well, I guess not. The question that came to mind is why don't they just mine their own metal? But maybe the mines. Maybe the only tunnels they actually still have ore are in the other dwarves' territory.
Yeah, I was thinking most of it might be depleted.
Right. Like that might have been, for all we know, that might have been why it was abandoned. It'll simply matter if there's nothing left to.
I like the idea of the dwarves having like really cleaned out this mountain, but they didn't use all the metal, right? Because like that's too much metal to ever use. But they did store it in a warehouse and then sealed those warehouses when their catastrophe, right? Like their kingdom was like, well, we're never going to use that much metal, but we can't let anybody else have it, so let's just seal all these warehouses full of metals.
Right, like kind of like the ultimate in I don't know, spiteful gluttony, I guess. So are you envisioning that there are these like maybe in the dwarven hold of of the northern holds that they just have these massive stores, like literally more metal than they know what to ore than they know what to do with?
Yeah, kind of. Like maybe that's how hard they fell, right? They were like they owned the entire mountain range and then something happened that made it so that they couldn't anymore, but they still had all these resources that they didn't know what to do with them. So we're just like, we'll seal it. We'll seal them.
Mm-hmm. And are you sticking with the idea that the metals are like sustenance for the kobolds?
I like that idea. That'd be great.
Yeah, if you could note that just so I don't forget. I'm seeing silk as a want. Silk from spider webs, I presume.
Yeah, it's kind of obvious, but it makes sense, especially if we're thinking this place is colder than we'd like. They may need clothing to stay warm.
I see. So this is like and again, since this is a very bereft, like that might be something we take for granted, but in a very desolate mountain range, that's freezing. That could literally be the difference. And even like there's no wood, so how are you going to start fires? That's another thing. But if you have silk, at least then you can create enough clothing to actually just keep you warm enough to actually survive. Interesting. So like if that want clock ticks off, then people are literally freezing to death. Yeah, like maybe the silk, it's very durable, but maybe it's not that. It may be very insulating, but also like wears off at but kind of like falls apart after a certain amount of time. So you always have to keep getting more.
In terms of like the tunnels themselves, I feel like we settled on the tunnels are actually pretty warm, so wood wouldn't be used for burning fires probably.
Okay. Yeah, if we stick with
if they need to like go outside of the tunnels, then that's how they stay warm, is the silk.
I got you. Right. Yeah. If they ever want it. Yeah. Like it might. Yeah. Plus, we don't know how big that mine shaft is. That the volcanic heat is. Or it could just be like a very small thing. Like maybe something that only the champions get to use because they're the cream of the crop, and everyone else has to rely on silk to stop from freezing.
Yeah, so I can see like they have to constantly gather the silk and then weave it, but it doesn't last that long. So then you burn it for heat and have to weave, weave fresh clothing constantly.
Right. So let's see. I'm just.
I already wore that shirt. Just go burn it.
Yeah. What if it's just a matter of the kobolds being like having a very acutely developed sense of fashion style, and they just don't want to get caught.
They have to rewrite.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They don't want to get caught in last week's fashions. Oh man. Let's see, I'm just checking to see if there's anything else I've forgotten about this particular sort of thing. So the complication for the wood is okay. So those tunnels collapsing from lack of fortification. That'll be a good. That's a good. I don't know if that's more of a consequence rather than a complication regarding the acquiring of wood. But I'm just trying to think of what else.
What is the complication supposed to entail?
Yeah, so I'm looking.
I'm
pretty sure it's. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be what makes getting this complicated, apart from the fact you have to travel for it. But I'm actually looking for that right now.
Ships are manned. Oh no.
Yeah, that's why I'm actually looking up for that right now because I just wanted to make sure I was understanding that particular attribute correctly.
I was thinking too. Maybe the well, no, scratch that. I was gonna comment on the silk, but I was maybe it could be like a byproducts that happens in the cave that they don't really care about. But then I was like, we already decided that we eat metal and not other things. So it was gonna be maybe we eat spider eggs, but no, I chose metal.
Well, we can eat fruits and meat. Maybe they could eat. Who knows? Maybe it's adult. Maybe they do that too. Maybe it's
Oh, like how really poor villages back in the day like used to burn dung for fire, right? So maybe it's like spider feces that we use for fire.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that is kind of interesting want, isn't it? Like literally collecting the droppings of one of these like oppressive predator societies around you. And there's a kind of poetry to that somehow.
It's like the fact that these wants have to be something that everybody constantly needs for surviving the village makes it really hard to think of stuff. I guess. It's my first time creating anything like this, so it's kind of like new.
Yeah, and again, again, there's nothing wrong with just sticking with the old standards of I guess we're using metals for eating basically as a food. It could be something as simple as water, and we haven't really established how you get your water. I don't think we've talked about like underground pools or waterfalls or anything like that.
Well, we did say we were near a body of water, so it doesn't have to be.
Oh, that's right. Well,
fresh water.
yeah. Well, yeah. That's. I mean, we haven't really established where the freshwater comes from. If that's if you wanted to change up your want, but I'm fine with sticking with that. I'm just checking to make sure I full.
So
yeah. So it looks like
oh, sorry.
I found where it just I found where it describes the complication. It's kind of there's a little wonky how the rules are laid out because there's the rules and then it provides a sample sample module, and sometimes the rules are located in that sample module, which is kind of weird. You'd think the rules it seems strange including some of the rules in like the example scenario, but that's how it is. Like the number is supposed to assign to your individual kobold attributes. That's something I only found in the module description, which seems a little weird. But anyway, here is complications. The complication is another story seed for the GM that directly relates to the difficulty of retrieving the supplies needed to reset the wants. So, for example, in the example of water is giving here, the complication is in order to access the river, the kobolds must venture miles into Uplandian territory and haul the water back. So it could be something as simple as you have to go deep into enemy territory to acquire. Yeah, like the complication of the ships are actively in use. That's like totally legit for a complication.
All right. Cool. I was going to suggest if that wasn't something that works, maybe like there's a sharp reef somewhere, maybe along these mountain range, and there's like a lot of crashed ships in there. But it's like really hard to get the wood out of those ships, right? Because it's like all on these jagged rocks and everything like that.
Yeah. So totally. That's a good idea. I'll have to remember that for one of your missions. Yeah, the ruins, the sealed warehouses of.
Yeah, they could even be like booby trapped and shit like that, right? Like.
Oh, most certainly, most certainly. That's definitely a good complication, and the complication listed for silk. That's again, that's something that's kind of more related to why the clock is constantly. Oh wait, I'm seeing some more here. Suppose before it can be carried back, or the dough gets.
Maybe they can only be acquired in like the infantile life cycle of the spiders, where they like just constantly spew it. I don't know.
Oh, like
really young spiders to get.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like they produce this webs in a form where it's still malleable for you to actually do stuff with, but then once a mature giant spider, the ones they create are like so thick and durable that they can't be shaped with. That'll be a good complication. The fact that you have to like, oh man, yeah, because then you're going against you're basically having to go up against and get near the baby spiders, and that's definitely going to be the thing that's going to piss off the spiders the most, won't it? I like that. If that's something we want to go with for the complication, it has to come specifically from baby spiders. I think that sounds good, and it looks like we've got pretty much everything set for the wants. There are, as you notice, there are extra want windows just in case other stuff comes up in the game. There's also a window for notes for anything else we might want to record about these about good old Beardsburn. But apart from that, it looks like we've got Harvest as a village. The last step of world building leads us to the family tab, which is the second tab. And here I've got like basically a column for every kobold family. So basically, you start by naming your family, and then the first block after that, you can name your first kobold, the first kobold you'll start off with. I have some notes in that orange row on top. You'll see the starting stats are listed up there. The stats are your standard D&D stats, and you'll assign 2 of them with a 1, 2 of them with a 0, 1 with a -1, and 1 with a -2. And your hit points, you'll roll a 6-sided die and add your con attribute. You have to have at least 1, so if you assign a negative attribute to your constitution, don't worry, you won't start off dead. Base damage for kobolds is 1d6 if you roll a full hit, a 10+. If you roll a 7 through 9 on your 2d6 to hit roll, you'll actually roll a d6, but then divide that by 2. because you're kobolds, rounding down. That's your base damage. And there are ways to increase that by various abilities. And begetting, that is what you do when you die. If you die in the middle of a mission, you have two options. I can give you 2 death tokens. I do give you 2 death tokens. And you can do a couple of things with them. You can kind of sit back for the rest of the mission, trust your fellow kobolds to carry it out, and you can use a death token to increase any one roll by 1 level. That means if someone rolls a miss, you can turn that into a partial hit. Someone rolls a partial hit, you can turn that to a hit. Or, and I think if you don't use them at all, I think you can convert them to XP for the village. Or you can just turn both those death tokens in and immediately create a new kobold and have them jump into the mission and come up with some wacky explanation for why that kobold's appearing out of nowhere. When you beget a new kobold to replace a dead kobold, you basically copy the stat block of your forebear. You add 1 to one of the stats, never going higher than 2. And then for abilities, well, maybe I should step back and explain what abilities are. They're basically, the bonuses that basically they're the functional equivalent of like class features or class moves. As you set your stats, one thing you might want to keep in mind is that, and I see someone's already assigned a -2 to wisdom, the number of abilities you get is based on your wisdom. That being, I think it's 1 plus your wisdom attribute with a minimum of 1. So even if you have a negative wisdom, you'll still get at least 1 ability. But that's something you should know off the top before you start assigning attribute numbers, because maybe you want lots of abilities to spruce up your character. And in the game folder, you will see a sheet called Kobold Abilities. That's where you can look up the abilities that are at your disposal upon character creation. And there are things like, Big Ass Sword, which lets you, increases your damage die. There are abilities that kind of simulate the functions of clerics and magic users, thieves, that sort of thing. It's basically again, like I said before, your class features basically. And
but you get 1 at the minimum, right?
At least 1, yes. I'm pretty sure. Even if you don't, you must get at least 1. That's no fun to have no abilities. If you call up an ability, if you pull down an ability and you see there's an asterisk, that means there's a prerequisite. And you could ask me or look up the Kobold ability sheet to see what that prerequisite would be. So I see a Spear Shaker family and a Heart Crier family. Excellent. Very, very, very respectable sounding lineage names.
You roll 1d6 for your starting hit points?
Yes, and add 2. And here's another thing you should know about hit points. Basically, the hit points will change a lot, even not counting actual damage. What happens is you roll your hit points, and then whenever you come back from a mission, you have the option of rolling your hit points again, and that number is now your new hit point total. So there's really no set maximum hit point total. If you happen to do that and you roll lower, you still keep that lower number. So really the only time you want to rest and heal is when you're really low to begin with. So yeah, basically, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I read all the stat sections just now, and I'm laughing at how all of them say this should be your highest stat.
Yeah, it's a classic rule book mind game, right?
Sorry to interrupt you. You were saying something to finish up healing?
Yeah, basically resting in between missions. You basically just re-roll your hit points, and whatever you roll, whether it's better or worse, that's what you start off with for the next mission. So again, your kobolds. You're not really built for durability. Not really built to last. So you don't really get to get much of a chance to accumulate hit points. Although I see Mirko has started off strongly, 7 points.
I
Very good.
amazingly rolled a 6.
Nice.
Well, you are lucky, so I guess that tracks. Got a lucky kobold, and the other kobolds are still coming along.
So we only create a new kobold after our previous one dies, right? We can't pre-create them.
Yeah, because you never. Yeah, I would suggest not pre-creating them, because as we play a couple missions, you'll get a sense of what's really important. For the village, and what's really important according to like how I run these games, which I don't know yet because I haven't figured out because I've never played this game before.
I'm excited. This
yeah.
Is
me too.
Cool.
Yeah, I am too. I'm looking forward to this. It's I'm glad. I've been wanting to play this game for quite a while, and I look forward to giving you lots of opportunities to create new kobolds. I don't have to feel guilty about, or at least I don't have to feel unduly guilty about killing off your characters, because that just gives you a chance to create a newer, better kobold who will carry on proudly in your family tradition. Yeah, just going through the kobold abilities here. There are some fun ones. There's I think one of my favorite ones is Born to be a Ninja, which basically, if you take that ability, basically every time you do damage, you do maximum damage. But that is one that has a prerequisite. I think it's I'm a ninja, sort of, or it's the name's something like that. And that's basically, even that ability is pretty cool, because basically you roll your damage die twice and you pick the higher number. Nothing wrong with that. What are some of the cool ones? You can get the bless ability, which gives you a chance to bless yourself or another kobold or a friendly unit before a strike for an attack. It basically gives them an ongoing bonus to attack, which is pretty nifty. You can take cantrips, or you can take light, unseen servant, and prestidigitation. Not the most immediately obviously useful ones, but if you're creative, I'm sure you can deploy those to great effect. Channel magic, you basically just unleash raw unchanneled elemental energy. It does good damage. If you roll a clean hit, it's 2d6 plus your intelligence. But of course, if you get qualified hits or misses, I get lots of opportunity to make very bad things happen with that unchanneled elemental fury. And I need to check exactly. I've already forgotten how many abilities you're supposed to get. It's wisdom plus something.
It's 2 plus wisdom for the original.
Yeah, and again, and as noted before, it's a minimum of 1. Everyone gets at least 1 ability. Also, note, yeah, when you when you beget a new kobold character, you copy the same statistics. You increase one of them by 1, and then you take one of the abilities from your last character and you give that to the new character, and then the rest of them you get to choose anew. There's nothing that says you can't just duplicate all the abilities if you really like that ability setup, but you have to include at least 1 from the ones. And I think you get, basically, it's the same amount. It's like wisdom plus 2, I think. No, it wasn't plus 1. Oh, so it actually goes down a little bit.
So begetting is like getting an offspring?
Yeah. It seems that you have a child who conveniently comes into maturity at the beginning by the beginning of the next mission. Yeah, exactly. Or it could be, maybe it's a nephew or niece. Maybe you have evil twin brother. Maybe, who knows? You know, also there's also it's also ambiguous how much time passes between missions. Years could pass, and you could have a baby that grows up and becomes your new family representative. Now I see. Let's see. It looks like. So what I see now, there's a Brian. Do you have a? I think your kobold, I believe, still records the name, but I see you've got.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Okay, I see you've got. It looks like you've got a pretty. Yeah, you're tough. You've got reflexes, which is pretty cool. Let me tell you how the reflexes thing works. I think you roll. It's a roll plus dexterity move, I believe. And depending on how successful that roll is, you get hold. You can use hold to basically negate hits against you, which is a pretty sweet move. Let me just make sure I'm remembering that correctly. Reflexes, yes, you roll plus dex. If you roll 10 plus, you get 3 hold. If you roll 7 to 9, you get 1 hold. You spend 1 hold to negate damage from a single attack toward you after rolling the damage. So you can wait and see how high the damage is before you commit a reflex hold spend, which is also nice. And it's either melee or ranged. If you miss on your reflexes roll, you've overplayed your hand. Your reflexes get the better of you. In that case, your sweet moves put you out in front of your friends, leaving you exposed and vulnerable. So there's that. And sharpshooter, you get +2 damage on ranged hits. The lucky move for Merku Spear Shaker, I was able to explain that in the window. Once per mission. That's not once per game. That's not once per campaign, but once every mission, you can change a miss to a 7 to 9 hit. So if you run like 2 or 3 missions in the session, you get to use that lucky ability in each session. And let's see. Looks like Brian's kobold is
some kind of shaman, because that's a lot of power.
Oh yes, yes. James is definitely very in tune with the spirit world. It seems like. Got ourselves a Zot, who is looks like the tough slingshot or arrow shot, whatever.
Yeah, I was
whatever
gonna say bow, but do we have bows?
It's what you have, whatever you want, I believe. So you can call you're champion, so you can have something even if it isn't.
So it's more of a thematic choice than mechanic.
Pretty much. Yeah, whatever matches your abilities, and we've got Merku, who is lucky and very durable. That's good. And then Selesh Heartcrier, who can cure and receive divine visions and can command and speak to animals. I can read off those abilities.
And command is a demon or a spirit.
You have command. Well, the actual move command is a summon, or it's whatever you want.
This is Voice of the Wild. Yeah,
Voice of the Wild, you command animals, but there is a command ability where you do summon a demon or a spirit to do your bidding. If that's something that's interesting, it's it's a unit that you basically summon a unit that has 12 hit points, so it's pretty tough. But it doesn't really. Here's what it can do: it can aid in attacks. It can absorb the damage from a single attack. It can scout ahead as if it had the scout ability, and it can enchant and distract another unit, where a unit will focus solely on trying to attack the spirit. And basically, it's another thing where you have to roll to accumulate hold points, and you spend those hold points to have the spirit or demon do stuff. And I see him. If you miss during the summoning roll, spirit still shows up, but it's pissed, and you don't control it. So.
I get the feeling that you always piss something off on a -6 roll.
Yeah, well, sure, and a lot of ways you just piss off people just by the dent of your existence. That seems to be one of the themes of the plight of the kobold, and the author's stated intent was to kind of help empathize with what traditionally has been the first of many punching bags for intrepid murder hobos. So. Yeah, it's definitely it's not easy being a kobold. It's a very very isolating life. The cure move. So basically, it's laying on hands. You roll plus wisdom. If you on a hit, you heal 1d6 plus wisdom hit points. If you roll a 7 to 9, you basically divide that amount of healing by half. If you miss, you take like D4. You yourself take D4 damage from the failed attempt, and it doesn't really define what the nature of that curing power is. The only thing the flavor text states is that, you know, if you roll a miss, maybe you read the incantation wrong, which indicates that maybe it's a magical spell instead of like a divinity thing. But, you know, as the player, you're welcome to define your KO ability however you'd like. The vision, this is definitely so basically you roll plus wisdom. On a 10 plus, you get your deity gives you actionable details on what is to come, and you get 3 hold. On a 7 to 9, you get a vague notion of what's to come. Lacking in specifics, you take 1 hold. You can spend the hold to add +1 to any roll. Basically, your deity guides your hand to success. If you miss, your god laughs at you, and your mind grows cloudy, taking 1 ongoing to wisdom until you perform a sacrifice on the god's behalf. And Voice of the Wild, you can speak to and command animals. When you issue a command, you roll plus charisma. 10 plus, the beast does what you want. On a 7 to 9, it'll do what you want if you give it something in return. And on a miss, you've pissed off the animal. So, do we have our characters set?
Yeah, I think so. I love, by the way, Blake, that your family name is Tree Climber when there's like no trees around.
What's a tree?
I don't know, but your family's renowned for climbing them. For all you know, trees could be the giant stone slabs of stone upon which these caves are carved.
It was the tallest peak you've ever seen.
Yes, we have Zot, Tree Climber, who is tough and nimble and a great shot. We have Merku, Spear Shaker, who is lucky, and Celeste Heartcrier, who is all holy and stuff. Oh, and I also want to point out, if or when your character dies, there is a slot for you to write your obituary, mostly to denote how your character died, just for fun's sake, just for the memories. So that's a character. That's a kobold character. It looks like at 6:50 we've got everything set. May I suggest we take a 10-minute break for bio stuff and other stuff, and for me to figure out what we're going to do next, and then come back at 7 and spend the last hour actually gaming. How does that sound?
All right, sounds good.
All right, we'll see you all in 10 minutes. Hello, I'm back. Thanks for hanging on here. And let me just open up one more window here. Do any of you have a 2-monitor or multi-monitor setup at home?
Yep.
Nice. I need to get that. I've got one, and I've learned playing Gauntlet how when I have I've learned it from playing enough Gauntlet games that it's very just how useful it is to have that second screen with all the charts and character keepers you need to check out at any given time. And even more so when you're actually running the game.
It's kind of that thing that once you get it, you can't ever go back. Like every time I use somebody else's computer, I'm always like, all right, let me just keep that on that side. Oh, you're only got one. All right.
Right. So, all right. So we've got ourselves. I'm sorry?
Probably just talked over somebody, but I'm getting my new headphones plugged in. I'll just be a second.
Oh, sure.
I was kind of curious, James, if you had any idea where your kobold gets their powers from. Like, do all kobolds have the ability to cast magic? Is it just your lineage, or do you have like an item that allows you to channel your magic from?
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask that.
Yeah, so I kind of had an idea. Since a lot of the specific flavor text of the vision ability is relating to specific gods, I was kind of thinking that we might tie up the reason why we came here is because we were basically forced away from our last area by the gods, and the only reason we survived is because we're hardy as hell. But that's kind of the idea I had, was just the gods give me the powers, but they're also like really fickle gods.
Okay,
I'm kind of imagining like they were just basically toying with us and give us enough rope to hang ourselves with. Kind of the gist.
What about this? If maybe we had like a whole pantheon of gods that we had before, but like they fucked us and we had to move, so we abandoned all of them but like one or something like that, and that's kind of like your god?
And maybe the reason why a lot of the magic explodes in our face is because it's like a trickster god. That's the only one who would retain in communication with us.
Right.
He still fucked us. He sent us and said, go over those mountains, and there was no way over those mountains.
Yeah, so all right, so we have our intrepid kobold champions. We have Zot Tree Climber, Miraku Spear Shaker, and Salish Heartcrier. So I was just thinking about what might be a good kickoff mission, and I figure that is the council. Who do you envision being in charge of Beardburn? Is it you all, or is there an elder perhaps, or what? How do you think your governing structure is set up, if you have one, given that you've got -1 for teamwork?
I feel because of our -1 for teamwork, like the maybe there's like multiple chieftains level characters in the tribe, and they kind of like work together to guide the tribe, and that's why our teamwork is so shitty, because they can never agree to anything.
So it's like the leftover leaders from the leftover society.
Yeah.
Is it you all? Are you the chieftains? Are you among the chieftains, or are
I'd
you
like
just
maybe
basically
Miraku to be one of them, one of the council representatives.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Given that, yeah, why not? Now I'm looking at stats. You're not necessarily an obvious leader, but that's okay. You kind of luck into things. So
Yeah,
I kind of like the idea.
My father
of,
died at like the most opportune time, and I just took his place in the council.
Right. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, Miraku could be one of the chieftains. One of the
just
chieftains.
like
Kind of
really
imagine
trussed up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, Miraku was like trussed up into that position of responsibility. He has no idea what he's doing, no training for it. He watched his dad do it a couple times, but that was it. So that's not what I can say.
Sure. So yeah, given that it's already 7:08, I just want to get into things as quickly as possible. We'll say that after the last bickering session of chieftains, it was noted that that maybe Beardburn would love to make a beeline for the fabled lock vault of the Northern Holds and get into that sweet Dwarven meadow. The only problem is you have to crawl through no small amount of tunnels to get there, and you're not entirely sure if you're going to have enough wood to prop up the way. Plus, there have been rocks falling here and there. Maybe there's a close call in the kiddie pen with maybe some ancient dwarf carving's head fell off while they were like climbing on top of it or whatever. So maybe you're thinking that maybe some reinforcing wood might be a good thing to quest out for at this time. That meaning, of course, venturing onto the coastal areas and into the territory of the pirate collective. Excuse me, the pirate cooperative. So, Murku has been impressed upon you to summon your fellow champions, and everyone knows who the champions are. Everyone knows who are clearly the least sucky of of the kobolds. I shouldn't say that word. I gotta get used to treating these brave kobolds with respect. Sucky is me and them. In any event, you and Zot and the third one whose name I'm still remembering need to figure out a way to get to the coasts and get your hands on the supply of wood stores, and figuring out a way to haul all that stuff back to Beardburn. Now, you've mentioned before that it's basically the mountains are right on the coast. Is that correct?
That was the thought I had.
I picture at the top of some cliffs overlooking the sea or water or whatever this is.
So basically, the journey would be a matter of climbing down those cliffs to get to the shore.
Maybe there's some kind of worked stone staircase that was like carved into some of those sides or something like that, like a relic from past. I don't know. I just don't like. It'd be kind of useless to have it at the bottom of a tall cliff. Just want so easy way to get down, but that's up to you.
Yeah, I would say there's like a staircase that we've that the tribe has worked to like hide.
Yeah, it can still be like a very dangerous trek, just like those staircase in Lord of the Rings there, where they're not really stairs to get the Shelob's lair.
Sure. I'm just taking note of how much time we have. Yeah, so you can certainly get around to doing that. So it's a hidden dwarven staircase, and at the bottom is there any kind of port? Does the pirate cooperative have a little pirate town nearby on the coast, or maybe it's just some docking territory? What's at the bottom of the staircase?
Maybe like the ruins of like a harbor. I don't know, like very, very barely nothing still left, but maybe the pirates have like a dock there for quick repairs, right? Maybe it's not populated, but maybe
I think maybe there's like a naturally formed cove, so there's a little place where they're able to pull their ships in.
Okay. So
that's why this is where they come to repair their ships and steal kobolds for a crew.
So this is really more of like a way station more than an actual hangout for pirates. Does this sound like what you're envisioning?
Yeah, something simple by all accounts.
Okay. We're going to say that they call this place the Scale Stop. Maybe it's it could be Scales Top. It could be Scale Stop. Like this is where we stop to get this, recruit more scales. It's I guess it all depends on your inflection, I guess.
I have a question about the pirate
Mhm.
cooperative, more aimed towards James.
Sure.
Are they always aggressive towards us, or do they sometimes stop at the what did we call it, the scale stop, to maybe trade with us sometimes? Or do they always come in as conquerors and raiders?
I can't imagine they're like always wanting to like kill everyone they come across, but I imagine they get impatient quickly.
Yeah, given that they are one of the main enemy countries, I would say that they're probably not like automatically hostile towards everyone, but towards kobolds, they probably won't be violent, but they probably look at them as like a cheap source of labor.
There's probably not a lot of respect between the two,
Absolutely. So they won't kill you outright, but they definitely knock you out, and next thing you know, you're swabbing ducks with chains on your ankles. So yeah, I'd imagine that would be the default disposition that they'd have towards kobolds. So yeah, now do you have a sense about where you're going to acquire the wood? I remember you mentioning some a particularly nasty rock outcropping where ships often crash and splinter and leave their wreckages drifting about the nearby sea. Does that sound like the source you want to try out first to get to?
Yeah, maybe it's not even really close to the scale stop at all. Maybe it's quite a trek away. But yeah, I imagine somewhere along that sea line there could be like a few wrecked ships on some sharp reefs.
Sharp reefs. Constant shipwrecks. And do you know how you're going to get there? I'd imagine you'd have to acquire shippage of some sort. Excuse me.
I'll ask our god.
All right. First move of the campaign. Let's do this. Roll plus wisdom. No, and as you do this, can you describe to us how you go about the vision? Like how do you prep for that sort of thing?
Let's see. I imagine it involves burning something, and then I look into the fire, and the sacrifice of the eye strain is what's required to get a vision. So I just see like little polka dots and stuff poking up, and then I see a vision from the god.
Sacrifice of vision. I like. It's like staring kind of a staring into the sun effect.
Yeah, exactly.
No poking holes in cardboard for you. So yeah, let's so you do that, you chant to your deity. Do you have a name for the deity, or is that something we can name later?
Something later. I do not have a name.
Sounds good. Well, go ahead and make that roll plus wisdom. Let's see what the gods
all right.
what our should provide for you.
Dude. I rolled 2 5s.
Oh, that sounds good. All right, that looks like yeah, it sounds like actual detail on what's to come. So yes, you get 3 hold, and I don't really have much space for. I didn't leave much space for notes in the sheet. So I'll just remember it, I guess, or I'll just mark down here vision 3 hold.
I'll add an extra row underneath them.
Oh sure, yeah,
just keep it down.
Thanks. Yeah. So basically, you get actual details what to come. And you can spend that to add +1 to any roll. So yes, so now were you looking? No, you already knew where to get the wood. Is that correct? It's just a matter of how to get there. Is what you were seeking guidance on. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. And
okay.
Vision says we have And we have actionable details on what is to come.
Yes, yes. You get a vision of the full moon, which and then below down at scale stop is a vision of a ship there, and it's docked, and they're just and there seems to be empty. It looks like it's almost like the ship will be there waiting for you. And conveniently enough, the next full moon is 2 days from now, which would be just enough time for you to get there. So it seems what the gods are telling you is that if you want transportation, it should be provided to you as long as you hustle and get to the appointed time and place noted in the vision.
So Celeste relays this to the other party members and says delightfully that the god has decided to stop abandoning us after so long of not talking back to us. And he's just so elated that he's finally able to talk with his god again, that he feels like he could come along and actually be useful for once.
So this is the first time this has actually worked.
Yes. He's been trying and trying, like through generations. He has been trying to get back in contact with the last god to talk to them, and finally he's been able to do it. So he's just like completely elated. Like this has been a multi-generational effort to like reconnect with the gods.
Fantastic. So how do you does everyone's agree that this is the time to head down there and make your way to secure passage to the deadly reefs?
Yeah, I was looking at that recruit move, and I'm just not seeing how we could possibly roll that as a success. So, I guess we're just
that's a good point. Do you want to bring kobolds with you? I heard some skepticism there just now, but no, what the rest of you think.
Well,
There is. I'm just checking to see if there's a. Now, one thing I should warn you about, as it stands, typically the best thing recruits are for if you're planning on getting into mass combat, because on their own, kobold units can't really help with stuff because they're usually just too disorganized. There is an ability. There is a village move that you can take. I think I can't remember what it's called, but if you take that move, that's when a kobold unit of recruits can actually aid you in like skill rolls. But I think on their own, they can't really do that well. So that might be something you want to think about if you consider the possibility of recruiting them to help in this particular mission.
I think it'd be fair that we want to have recruits, though, because we're going to need people to carry the wood back, right?
Yeah, that's what I was.
That's a good point. Yeah, so they're okay. So that you basically summon them as like porters.
Yeah, even if it's just like, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them. Doesn't have.
Sure. Yeah. Even the most disorganized kobolds can do that much.
I mean, we could try to float the wood back to the bottom of the cliff and then just haul it up from there.
Oh yeah.
It would be to drag it behind from
ingenuity.
Well, that's true. I mean, well, if you acquire the ship, you'll have the ship to store the wood on, and once you get it to back to scale stop, that I guess once you get it there, it'll be easy enough to just have the kobolds climb down and bring it up with you then. So maybe there's not a need to recruit them for the entire journey. But that is a good point. That you are going to need. Yeah, you're definitely going to need help at some point, and whether you want to have them on hand. The other thing is, unless you want to have them on hand to actually, acquire and accumulate the shattered wood once you get to the reefs.
Yeah, I mean, just collecting it up and loading it will be much quicker if there's more.
So if you want to go ahead and recruit, we can certainly do that. Okay. That could be fun. Who wants to do the recruiting?
One to do the recruiting, so I can spend my hold from my vision. Plus, I'm good at convincing people anyway, right?
Yeah. Now
the person thing.
I'm sorry.
Is
sorry.
recruit a village thing and not a person thing?
You know what? It is a village thing because it works off of teamwork. So there is that.
Is there a way for me to spend my hold on that, or is that just outside of the scope?
It's still a roll, so if you're the one doing it, I'd say you could use your hold on that. And
Okay.
yeah, and you could just roll the results and wait to see how the roll ends up before you decide whether or not you want to spend vision hold on that. So yeah, I think that sounds fine. Yeah, and it makes sense that your vision would be able to help with that, because the more detail you can provide, the more you can convince the people that they're your fellow kobolds that the trickster is on your side.
After?
I'll say for this case, yes, because I know one thing I hate is when I get a bonus and I spend it and I find out I didn't need it because I rolled a natural 20 or whatever. That's always a buzzkill. So I'll say you can wait and see how the roll actually turns out before you decide whether you want to commit hold to it. So yeah.
Okay. Let's do it.
Now again, your teamwork is -1 because you have too many chieftains and not enough chiefties, I guess you could say. So yeah, let's see how the roll turns out, and then we'll move from there. So roll -1.
I got an 8. Looks like.
Okay. Yep. Okay. So what happens with that is you could get 1 unit of kobolds. So basically about, we'll call it maybe an even dozen. When you do recruit, you have to. I'll do 2 things. One, I will go to the unit board and I will designate 1 kobold unit like that to show that they are now part of your adventuring party. The next thing I will do is I will go to the population stat and take that down 1. It's like borrowing from the library. And as long as these kobolds don't die on the way, you'll be able to take your population back up to 7 when they return. So that's now. Theoretically, you rolled an 8. If you want to spend 2 hold, you can get 2, or you can recruit 2 units if that's something you'd like.
What do my party members think?
I think 1 unit should be enough. That's like 10 kobolds to help us carry and ferry this wood.
Okay.
Cool. Well, now you have a party. Now it's a party. So you've got the dozen kobolds to lug wood with y'all. So
for wood.
I'm sorry?
It's the holy quest for wood. Hopefully not the quest for holy wood.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. HOLY wood is fine, but HOLEY not so good. Very true. So you trek down the rough-hewn stairs. Since they are hidden, as you had specified before, it's pretty easy to get down there without getting picked off by mountain vultures or anything like that. You get to the bottom after 2 days, and we're just gonna hand wave and assume that you've got all the rations you need, all that stuff. It's not an equipment heavy. This is not an equipment heavy game, as you may have guessed from the character keeper and the rules. You get there with maybe a little bit of time, like maybe a day to spare. The 12 of you camp there, maybe fish or whatever, and then on the night, basically as you're approaching, just as the full moon is rising, it's and on the night of the full moon, you're waiting there. You haven't seen anything yet, and all of a sudden, off in the distance, you just kind of see this ship slowly making its way towards shore. It's not waving any obvious well, it's basically the same ship you saw in your vision, and it's getting closer to shore, and eventually it would kind of drift off and get pretty close to the scale stop. But it doesn't look like it's like sailing of anyone's volition. In fact, as it gets closer, you see that there's no one on the deck, and it's almost like it's just almost It seems as if it's drifting on its own accord without crew to into or towards the scale stop. How do you want to prepare for it as it gets closer?
Are we still descending, or are we at the?
Oh, you're at the bottom already.
All right.
Yeah. Basically got there a little earlier from the full moon, and now it's the night of the full moon, and now this ship is drifting in.
I think when we first got down there, we were all looking very impatient as to where the ship was and looking very meaningfully towards Salesh, and then when we see the ship come in and we're all happy, we're all like, yeah, it's here, and then like our faces kind of drop as we kind of notice that it's heading towards the shore at a reasonably fast speed and not slowing down.
Yeah, it's not approaching at a speed where it's going to in danger of crashing and hurting itself. It almost feels like it's drifting, but it's drifting towards you all. This is a natural. I think the shaping of the cove kind of like directs currents towards a scale stop. So it's almost like a kind of like nature's autopilot in a way.
All right. Does it still look like it's heading towards the docks, or? Yes,
in fact, it does drift into the dock, almost as if guided by the hand of the trickster itself. Yeah. Now, as you get right up, it gets right up to where you all are. You notice that you see bodies lying on deck.
Okay, what is about to try and kill us besides everything?
Oh, is that? Are you kicking in a move? Yeah, that's like the discern reality.
I think that might be the wise thing to do.
Sure, always a wise thing to do. Yeah, I'm just getting my binder of getting the basic news sheet out because I really should have had that to start with. Of course, it's not here.
Reroll selected.
Oh, here it is. No, wait. What's that?
Oh, it looks fine to me. They're just bodies. Nothing's gonna hurt us. I rolled 2 1s.
Oh, okay. And that I assume that was a figure things out.
He's not figured shit.
Yeah, I'm like worried about why there's bodies on there and what that could mean for us, and clearly it doesn't seem to matter at all.
Well, I'll tell you what. That's the first. I believe that's the first failed move of the evening. So let's go ahead and first of all, let's give 1 point of experience to the village. Hooray! Good job. And I also get to tick off one of a want clock. And since we're looking, since this is a mission to acquire wood, I'll go ahead and click the wood clock down to 3 o'clock, down to 3, which is fine. No one's died yet. And unfortunately, you don't really. Yeah, you're not really sure what's going on. Does anyone else have any thoughts about what to do or? At this point,
I think Mirku starts pointing around at some of the other kobolds to get ready to board. He's as oblivious as the other one, I guess. We're just gonna board this one.
I mean,
all right.
If whatever killed them is still aboard, we're not gonna know until we get there. Just be ready. We need that ship.
There's nothing that's on there. We're fine.
All right. You get some of the kobolds. I guess you probably got some makeshift you reach into your adventuring pack and pull out some hooks or whatever to guide the ship.
Yeah, there's probably still some more lions on the docks ready to tie the boat
right.
up, something like that.
Yeah, it's probably somewhere between tiny and mid-sized, we'll say. But for kobolds, that makes it quite spacious for 15 kobolds or so. you as you get closer, you see that it's probably is in fact that this had been at one point a pirate collective ship, because you notice that there's a variety of species amongst the crew. All dead, of course. You've got your salamander scalawags and your bugbear buccaneers, that sort of thing. And they don't look like they've been wounded. Yeah, you don't see any piercing wounds or bites.
I'll take a squad of kobold and explore the lower deck.
Okay, sure, you can do that. You look around and you basically see more of the same. Seems like everybody's died off, including the what you can only presume was the captain, who's just and someone who's a being that was dressed modestly by pirate captain standards, but still he looked to be an orc who seemed to be the toughest one there, so, or at least the biggest of the bodies there. So you assume that was the one in charge.
Was there any kobold crew?
There was. You know what? You may have, yeah. In fact, you probably would have seen like someone you remember from from Beardburn having disappeared, maybe even like a year or two ago. Yeah, she's back with a peg now with a left peg leg and sadly already passed on. But there was in fact, you do see one more kobold by the name of kobold name generator by the name of Var. So now you at least know what happened to that poor fellow beard burner.
Well, if it was our god who sent us this ship, you'd think they would have returned Var alive.
You would think. Oops. Now, again, it doesn't look like down in the crew, or down in the lower decks, you'd basically see the quarters and yeah, that actually you actually might even see, the good news is you also happen to come across like some a modest booty that the ship seems to have collected, which is good news.
I hauled that chest up on the deck and show everyone.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've even left it and you already found something. But no wood, sadly. And of course, that begs the question, do you just...
Do we just dismantle this ship for a
Yep.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, why go to the Rift when we can just dismantle this one?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
I'm gonna shore and pick it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that. Let's say that you're probably hoping to find like a lot more, because that would be kind of a anticlimactic conclusion to the mission, wouldn't it, if you just took this one? And again, like I said, this wasn't really that huge. And you really might be needing more. Yeah. So
I could imagine like we actually need the ships to wreck, because like actually taking apart the boat is just like way too difficult for us. And we don't know how to sail enough to like go other than like we're barely able to kind of like steer it and maneuver it. We're going really slow. Like we don't have the
crashed
skill.
the ship we're on to break it apart and harvest it. That's
like
how we get the wood.
But like I don't think we have the skill as sailors to like sail it fast enough to break it up on the rocks. Like we could beach it, but not break it up.
I like that.
So So we need to just wait for ships to wreck and then collect the wood.
Oh. Well, there's could be something as simple as that.
It's an idea.
Yeah. So. So is the decision to move on with the plan and hope for a bigger score, or are you going to just settle for what's here and hope that?
Yeah, after we kind of like deal with this ship, like get rid of the bodies, maybe like grab some of the furniture out of here and use the wood from that. We're gonna grab as much as we can, the booty included, and then we'll try to set sail after that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, is my mic kind of low again?
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, so let's yeah, you can certainly do that. So let's you can get all that stuff on. Are you going to try to get it back up to the colony or get back up to Beerburn?
If we try to break up the unit, does it still count as a unit?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Where some stay here and some go up there?
Yeah, like take half to get what we have right now and send it back to the village so we don't lose it.
Just send one as a messenger to like come collect this because we're still close, right?
Yeah, if you just have one go up to the colony and then have them get the rest while you head off, I think that would be fine. You can still maintain you could still maintain coherence.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Now you're getting ready to do that, and you notice that all of a sudden Var starts coughing up a bit of blood. And you thought that she had been dead before, but it seems like she's actually hanging on, and that she's still alive.
Cure.
Oh right, yes, you can cure.
It's kind of like and everyone knows that Selesh can do it, so it's like as soon as that's noticed, somebody just calls out for you.
Like the whole crowd of kobolds picks me up, and I like crowd surf over them, and they put me in front of the bar. I'm just like, what just happened?
Right. So yeah, like, go ahead and roll plus wisdom. And let's
but with our -1 teamwork, they probably drop me like right next to her.
Oh yeah, they just like throw you right on.
Yeah, so go ahead and make a roll, and let's see what happens.
Yep. All right. I'm probably going to end up spending my dice on this. My whole this. Reroll 2 and 2. I'm going to slam all 3 onto that to bring me up to 7. 8 total.
No, you
all right.
have 2 left. 2 holds left.
Oh,
so that
can I only spend +1 at a time?
Yeah. I mean, you don't.
Or is it? I can spend as many as I want?
You can spend as many as you want. So you didn't have to spend all. Yeah.
So I'll spend all 3 to get me up to 8, or do I only need 7?
Yeah, just 7. Plus,
you
use your first hold on
2 holds. So I have 1 left.
Okay, so you've got one hold left. Okay, so yeah, you managed to basically you so what you can do is you can roll 1d6 plus wisdom, and that's how much you heal her. You will have to absorb some of the damage, so whatever you heal, take half of that as your own damage.
Okay. So I roll 1d6. And I add sorry, what do I add to that? +1?
1d6 plus whatever your wisdom is.
Oh, okay. So yeah, +1. Reroll. Okay. I rolled a 5, so I take 3 points of damage. Great.
We can roll that. We can. Oh no, you round that up. Yeah, 3 points of damage it is.
Rough.
Because I add 1, so I heal 6, take 3.
Yeah, and you save Vor's life, which is going
I rip my arm off and place it on her. There we go. No, I'm kidding. I guess I do like a blood ritual or something and bleed out a little too much to heal her.
Yeah, you have to like cut your hands and then lay your palms on her or something like that.
Yeah. And I accidentally knock myself in the wrong spot and start bleeding everywhere, and then everyone's like trying to stop the blood.
Yeah, so Var's
I've never had this power before. I don't know how to do it.
So Var is very grateful that you've saved her life. She is able to relate to you. Basically what happened was that they just that the ship had just raided caught a light merchant vessel and raided it, and then along the way that amongst the booty they had gotten was a delicacy from a faraway island. It was a cockatrice, and the orc captain, who is no relation to the grand champion of the pirate collective, he ordered a meal be made of the cockatrice, and it was after they ate that cockatrice that everyone immediately got sick. In fact, we could even say that that she had only survived because being a member of Beerburn, she had the hardiness to actually survive it somehow, and that was what had poisoned the rest of the crew, basically. And it must have been the fates must have brought her back and the ship back with you all to bring her to safety. So and she thanks you profusely for saving her life, and she wants in on the mission to acquire more of the goods that you want to acquire for the wood you wanted to acquire for the village, if you would have her.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Liberating from liberation is the best thing ever.
And we also could use someone who knows how to steer this thing.
Right. That would be very helpful. So you all agree on that, and everyone, the other kobolds, carry on their tasks to go ahead and bring up the booty, and you've now got the ship, and you're ready to head off. I'm thinking it's like getting close to 8 o'clock, so I'd like to actually complete this mission in the next session, if that's okay with everyone. In fact, we may even in that way we can also bring in Robbie as the fourth player, and you can start the first mission. You can complete the first mission altogether. Does that sound like an okay plan for everyone?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, so and then I can also figure out how I want this to go, and then also prepare for the follow-up missions. So this is the beginning of No Country for Old Kobolds. We've got ourselves a bit of a mission. We got ourselves a nice setup for the village and the country. One thing I forgot to do was to talk about like geographically where everything's presented, but I could just like whip up I think you've given me enough information where I can just whip up a rudimentary map that we can work off just so we can visualize the world we've established here, and then we'll continue on from there and finish up this mission and continue on and hopefully ensure the safety and survival of the proud village of Beardburn. Having said that, I think I'm going to stop the recording in a little bit. We'll continue this next week, and we'll do just a little bit of wrap up after I turn off the recording. So here we go.